What happens when a student's deeply held religious belief goes head-to-head with her school's uniform policy? You might think this is just a local issue, but back in 2002, it actually sparked a legal firestorm that went all the way to the UK's highest court. This is the story of Shabina Begum, a school uniform and a legal showdown that changed everything.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the story of Shabina Begum's request. Then we'll dive into the big ideas at stake, this clash between freedom and community. After that, we'll look at how the court made its final call and stick around for the end, because we'll explore why this one case is still so incredibly important today.
All right, so this whole thing kicks off not in some fancy courtroom, but right there in the hallways of Denby High School in Luton, England. And it all starts with a 16-year-old student named Shabina Begum and a request that she believed was absolutely essential to her faith. And let me tell you, this was not a quick fix. What began as a pretty straightforward request in 2002 turned into a 4-year legal marathon. I mean, the case bounced all the way through the UK court system. First the school won, then Begum won, before finally landing in the House of Lords for the final definitive ruling in 2006. Now this is a really crucial point. The school wasn't just throwing down a blanket no to any kind of religious clothing. Actually, its uniform policy was created after talking with local mosques and parents. They already had options to accommodate Muslim students, like the shalwar kameez. So what started as a conversation about a uniform, well, it blew up into this massive legal question. The case became a perfect example of a debate that societies have been having forever. Where do you draw the line between one person's individual freedom and the needs of the community as a whole? And right here, you can see the two sides of the coin. This wasn't a simple case of good versus bad. It was a clash between two totally valid claims. On one side, you have Begum saying her fundamental human rights were being stepped on. And on the other, you have the school arguing that its policy was there to protect all students and keep the school a unified, inclusive place. So, the legal bedrock for her whole case, it all comes down to Article 9 of the European Convention on Human Rights. It says everyone has the right to manifest their religion. But that word, manifest, became the million-dollar question. What does it actually mean to manifest your religion inside the walls of a school? Look, for Shabina and her lawyers, this had nothing to do with fashion. This was about faith, pure and simple. They argued that, according to her personal, sincere belief, wearing the jilbab wasn't a choice, it was a religious requirement. And because of that, the school had a duty to let her wear it. But on the other side, the school had a totally different perspective. For them, the uniform was way more than just clothes. It was a tool, a symbol of their school's identity, specifically designed to smooth over social and religious differences and make everyone feel like they were part of the same team. All right, so you've got these two really powerful, compelling arguments clashing head-on. How on earth did the UK's highest court at the time, the Law Lords, figure this one out? Well, it turns out their approach was incredibly methodical. They didn't just wing it. They had this really clear step-by-step process. First, they asked, was her right limited? And they said, yep, it was. But then, step 2, is that right absolute? Can it never be limited? And the answer was, no, it's not absolute. And that brought them to the final and most critical question of all. Was the school's policy a proportionate way to achieve its goal? And that last idea, proportionality, man, that became the absolute key to the whole case. Think of it like a legal balancing act. The court had to weigh everything and decide, did the school's uniform rule go too far? Or was it a fair, reasonable, and necessary way to protect the entire school community? So, what was the final call? After all that, the Law Lords sided with Denby High School. They decided the school's uniform policy was in fact justified and proportionate. So, why? What was their reasoning? And this quote from Lord Begum, who is the senior judge, really tells you everything you need to know. He points out that the school's rule wasn't just some random order they cooked up. It was the result of wide consultation. They had done their homework, listened to the community, and had tried to be respectful. And there was another really practical point that the judges picked up on. They noted that it wasn't like Shabina Begum was being totally blocked from getting an education that fit her beliefs. There were other schools nearby that she could have gone to where the jilbab was allowed. She still had options. So you see, this decision wasn't just about one student or one school. It created these legal shockwaves that are still felt today, setting a huge precedent for how these kinds of conflicts are supposed to be handled. So what did we actually learn from all this? Well, the case left us with some major takeaways. First, religious rights are super important, but they aren't unlimited. It also backed up the idea that schools know what's best for their own communities. And maybe most importantly, it said that thinking about the rights of the whole group and trying to keep everyone included are totally valid reasons to set rules. And that right there is why we're still talking about a case from years ago. It's basically a roadmap for one of the toughest questions modern, diverse societies face every single day. How do we protect an individual's right to be themselves while also making sure we can all live together as a community? In the end, the Begum case doesn't give us a simple one-size-fits-all answer, and maybe that's the biggest point. Instead, it leaves us with the essential question, the one we all have to keep thinking about: where exactly do we draw that line between my rights and our shared rules? It's a conversation that is more important now than ever before.